Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Dorina Gilmore-Young.
And I'm Shawn Young, and you're listening to episode 3 of Walk, Run, Soar, a podcast about the intersection of faith and running.
So, as a runner, you work hard to meet your physical goals, but deep down, you long for your training to be a more meaningful experience, one that engages your body, mind, soul, and spirit. The purpose of this podcast is to talk about that intersection.
Today, we are kicking off this podcast by interviewing my good friends, CJ and Chelsea Albertson. CJ is a professional runner for Brooks Sports and the world record holder in the indoor marathon. His wife, Chelsea, is also an accomplished elite marathoner. She participated in the U.S. Olympic marathon trials that were held this past February in Atlanta, Georgia.
So, we are so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us for Walk, Run, Soar. Stay tuned. So each week, I'll be starting off by sharing a short word of encouragement from Scripture to help give you that kind of cool drink of living water before we go into our interview time. And today, I want to talk about the theme of community. So I don't know if you've ever been a part of a group of runners or perhaps had a running or walking partner, but it makes a world of difference when we can get out and do this exercise in community. I've had the privilege of being a part of a bunch of different groups, but one of the groups that is just most dear to my heart is called the Go Mama Runners. So we are this motley crew of women. All of us are moms, and we love to get out there on the trails near our home here in Central California. And I started with this group not too long after my first husband went to heaven. And so it was really meaningful for me to have these Saturday times where we would get out on the trails, we would see God's creation. And quite frankly, it was the only time that I really had to myself during the week. And a lot of the other moms, that was their experience as well. And we just got into trail running together. Some of us were brand new to it, and we fell in love with the experience of going on these trails, seeing God's creation. Sometimes we would go over to Millerton Lake and run the Winchell Cove Trail, so we would see the beautiful lake, or we would be up in the mountains. One of the races that we did together was called the Shadow of the Giants, which was a 20K race up through Oakhurst. And it was a really hard uphill race, but at the same time, it was filled with such beautiful scenery as we got to run through the giant trees that are up in that area. And so as I think about these times where I have gotten to run in community, I think about those deeper conversations that I've had with my friends about faith, about things we were struggling with, about things that were going on with our kids or our families. And I think about how community was forged through these times where we would meet together to run. In Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 to 25, it talks about how important it is that we would connect in community. And I want to read this verse for you. It says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." I love these verses in Hebrews because it is an encouragement to believers that we need to have concern for each other, that we need to challenge each other, that we need to spur each other on. And a way that that can happen is when we gather in community. So when I would go out with the Go Mama Runners, I would find these opportunities where I would get to challenge my sisters in Christ, and they also would inspire me in different ways. And the idea is for us to move forward in this direction of love and of good deeds. So I'm always inspired by Hebrews 10, 24 to 25. And I also want to just point out for those of you who are listening that in our devotional book, Walk, Run, Soar, at the end of the book, there's actually an appendix. And so I've written an article about how to form a running group. So if you've never done that before, if you've never really gone out with a group of friends, there's some great tips there of how we formed the Go Mama Runners and some of the things that we made a key part of our meeting together. So be inspired today by Hebrews 10, 24 to 25.
We are thrilled today to have Our good friend CJ and Chelsea Albertsons join us for this Walk, Run, Soar podcast. CJ grew up in Fresno and participated in track and cross country for both Buchanan High School and then went on to race at and compete at Arizona State. He is currently teaching PE and is a health instructor at Clovis Community College and is coaching both cross country and track there as well. He is a professional runner for Brooks Sports and recently competed at the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials, where he finished 7th in 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 49 seconds. His wife, Chelsea, grew up in Santa Clarita, California, and attended Golden Valley High School, and also went on to compete at Arizona State. She ran a 15:53 5K while competing at Arizona State and qualified last year for the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials as well. She recently completed her RN degree and began working at Valley Children's Hospital here in Fresno in the respiratory unit. So let's start out by talking to them both about how they got involved with running.
Yeah, I started in elementary school. We had cross country at our elementary school at Copper Hills. So I just went out for the team in 4th grade and immediately loved it. And I was the fastest one, which I liked. So yeah, I just kind of stuck with it and have been running pretty much ever since then.
Yeah, and I also started running in 4th grade. I went out for the cross country team, and I was not the fastest one, but I was really bad at all the other sports I did, and so I was a little bit less bad at cross country. And I had so much fun, so then I just kept running.
I love that. Well, do you guys have any highlights from like high school days that you might want to share with us? Because obviously you continued on from there.
Yeah, I had a pretty good high school experience going to Buchanan High School. Traditionally, we've always had a good program, not only like in our valley in Fresno, but just across the state and even across the nation. So my freshman year, I was lucky enough to join a team that was like one of the best in the state, and there's just a great group of older guys that just really made me excited about it. And we ended up getting 2nd in the state that year and qualifying for the national meet, which was just like really fun and just like a great introduction into high school. Like, I mean, being able to compete at nationals is something that not very many people get to do. And I got to do it with a bunch of teammates, and that just like kickstarted my high school running career, I guess. And I was always into running, but that just kind of like solidified it and, like made me want to do it for a long time.
Yeah, I never had any really cool moments like that. Like I never went to NXN or even qualified for the state meet in high school, but I just had to love like putting in like the day in and day out work, like even just a freshman in high school, like I loved that. And I had my siblings also ran with me, and so just like being out there with my sister and then my brother, like we overlapped in high school for 1 year. So that was special to be able to like be on the cross country and track team at the same time. And I loved like the progression that you can see, that you can make, like, and it's a really like tangible progression. Like you can see like your time's getting faster. And so I think that's what makes running, can make it so fun.
So you did cross country and track. What events did you do, Chelsea?
So in track, in college, I ran the 5K and then the 1500, and then I did one 10K, but I was mostly a 5K runner. And CJ ran track too.
Yeah, what were your events, CJ?
Yeah, in college, I mainly did the steeplechase, and then a little bit of the 5,000.
Wow. So for those of you in our audience who don't know what the steeplechase is, it is a 3,000 meter event, which is just shy of 2 miles. It's 7.5 laps around the track where there are these steeple barriers. They're like hurdles, but if you hit them, they don't move. They don't fall down like a regular hurdle that you may be more familiar with. And there's also a water pit that they have to jump over, or sometimes have 1 foot land in. And it's a brutal event.
Can you tell that Shawn has a little experience with steeplechase?
Yeah, that was actually my event in college as well, and I have scars on my shin to prove it from falling on steeple barriers.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit more. So where did you go to college then, CJ? And, tell us a little bit about that journey of competing at the college level.
Yeah, we both went to Arizona State, actually. That's how we met. I'm a year older than her, so she unknowingly followed me there to meet her husband.
Nice.
But yeah, we went to Arizona State. I think both of us had a pretty good experience there. It's in the Pac-12, which is one of the most competitive conferences for distance running. So both in cross country and track, you're kind of forced to be really good and compete at a high level, or you don't really compete. You kind of are just there watching other people run fast. So it's a good, for competitive people, it's a great experience to be in. And we both had some ups and downs. I had a little bit more downs than she did. But overall, we both had good experiences there, and we liked our school and our coaches. And being able to compete in college, especially together, just like as a couple, I think gave us something that very few couples get to experience together, and like just experiences that we'll take for the rest of our life. And even just like growing with God, like through college, is such an interesting time for pretty much everybody. And then adding that layer of like competing at the highest level, or at least for college at the highest level, just adds another layer to that. So just kind of was a quick growth period and a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. So you both went to Arizona State. Now, I'm just curious, like, how did your relationship begin?
Yeah, so
yeah, we want to know. I'm sure our audience would love to hear about how
it was just like we just kind of met, and then a few months went by, like we were just friends, and then like so we met in August, and then around like end of October, November, like we're like, oh, like who is he? Like he's cute, like we like each other. And then I remember, like, it was November 4th. It was my mom's birthday. So I remember. He was, like, really upfront, and really it was from the encouragement of an upperclassman who was a good friend and, like, a wise teammate. CJ, like, don't mess with her. Like, if you like her, like, tell her you like her, and tell her, like, exactly, like, your intentions, which is such a popular word. So I remember on November 4th, he texted me. He's like, can we talk? And I knew exactly what the conversation was going to be about.
We had gone on like a couple dates.
Yeah. And but I love, like, it was like he straight out said, he's like, I really like you and I want to get to know you to maybe marry you. And I was like, oh yeah, me too.
Wow.
So then, like, we were just kind of like dating a little bit, and then we officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. It was on November 21st, is my birthday. But there's kind of a funny story about that, because he was telling people that I was his girlfriend like before he was. When he actually went to be like, oh, will you be my girlfriend? He's like, well, would it be okay if I told other people that you were my girlfriend instead of just saying it normal? It was so awkward, but it was funny.
So his intention was.
I already knew the answer, so.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your version of that story?
So we used to like go do yoga, but I say yoga because we just sat there like
I did yoga.
he did yoga and we watched him do yoga. So with some other friends of ours, like we would meet at the dorm
Lounge area.
dorm lounge area, and he was telling the story of how he found this girl's phone and he went and returned it to the mom, and she was like, oh my gosh, like you're so amazing, like that you returned this phone. And then she's like, my daughter is a cheerleader at ASU and like she's really cute, like do you want her phone number? And then he told her, oh sorry, like I already have a girlfriend. So he was telling us this story, and it's like I'm sitting there like, I'm not your girlfriend. So then the next day he's like, I know I told, like telling people you're my girlfriend, like would that be okay with you? Oh, and then we were supposed to, like, there was a lot of confusion about our date because the restaurant we were going to was also the name of a church event. So
Okay.
I thought he was saying,
She's going back in time.
was it back in time?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so I said it. She was my girlfriend mainly out of convenience, just because I'm not gonna explain to some random girl's mom that we're going on dates, we're not boyfriend or girlfriend yet. You know, it's like I'm not. But she's talking about our first actual date. So before all this is in like October. So before we even like talked about, you know, dating to possibly marry. I like this was our first like real date. So I asked her to go to Encounter, which was a breakfast restaurant. And well, no, actually, so I was going to ask her after this like youth group church college night or something, and she left in the middle of it. And so then I couldn't ask her, and I was like upset because I was like thinking about it the whole time. Like when it ends, I'm gonna ask her, and she left early. So then I still like I think texted her like, do you want to go to Encounter tomorrow for? Oh, I didn't say I just said Encounter tomorrow. And there's this other church thing called Encounter Night. So she thought I was asking her to this church thing that we were all going to already.
And I was confused, like, well, I'm like already going, and like, why are you inviting me? Like, I don't need an invite from you, like, to go to this church event. Like, I'll see you there. And then I'm like telling my roommate sitting there, I'm like telling her the conversation, and then we're both like, wait, I don't think he means church. Like, he must mean something else. And then I realized he meant to the restaurant. And so we kind of called it a pity date because it was out of a misunderstanding.
that is great.
Then we dated for a year and a half, and then we got engaged, and we were engaged for a year, and then we got married the summer going into my senior year and his 5th year for his master's degree.
Wow.
So how was it being married and then like
On the team.
running and on the team and all that stuff?
It was great. Like,
yeah.
Even though like we were the only married people and like our lives were different, like I never felt like we necessarily like didn't fit in, or like it didn't make it weird. I thought maybe other people felt weird. And like people just like had expected it of us. Like even some of my friends on the team like joked when it's like I told them like, oh, we're getting married, like, oh, it's about time. So it's just like, it's like we had talked about it, like we were really open, like people knew like we're gonna get married. So I don't think it was like this huge surprise.
Yeah, even though it's not like super common to be married in college, especially on a sports team together, I felt like no one really thought of it as weird. It was just kind of like,
oh, that's CJ and Chelsea,
yeah, and we liked it. I think, I mean, we both had like I mean, it was our last year, so I guess it should be our best year, but we ran well, and I feel like we're happier, and I don't know, I mean, I think it was great. There really was no downside. Everything about it was better.
I feel like we had a good mix of like, we had our first like few years like where we did get to be on our own and like experience, even though we were dating, but like experience college separately, like live with roommates, like he lived in with a house of guys, I had a house of girls. So like we got all that experience, and then we got to experience that being married. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. And like we were pretty good about like, we still hung out with other people. Like I didn't feel like really isolated afterwards.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I love hearing those stories. And we actually have a good number of friends who are kind of like running couples. So we love asking about those stories. And that's kind of part of our story too that we shared in episode 1.
Yeah. Also, we were going to ask CJ, we know that you are coaching now and you're coaching at the collegiate level. And in addition, you're also a Brooks sponsored athlete. Is that correct? You're running professionally for Brooks, because I think one thing I forgot to mention in the intro is that CJ finished 7th at the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials in February of this year in Atlanta, and he ran a smoking time of 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 49 seconds. And
Awesome.
yeah, that's incredible that CJ is running essentially a 5-minute flat per a mile for 26.2 miles. And at the same time, coaching and teaching at Clovis Community College. Now, CJ, how did you start coaching? And, particularly being fairly young, how did you get a college coaching job?
I guess I'm lucky. We were living in Santa Clarita, and so Clovis Community College is a new college. I think it became its own college in 2014 or 15, somewhere around there. And so they started to add sports, and they started with swimming and soccer. And I remember I had sent, even when I was even in college, when we were living in Arizona, I had sent an email to the athletic director saying if they ever start cross country, I'd really want to coach there. And I don't even know if that email was ever read, but anyways, a year or two later, they decided to add cross country, and it was a part-time job. So you're a part-time professor and coach, and I got the job. I got some help from like people in the in this area that knew me and gave me good recommendations to the athletic director. So that helps. That I guess I had a good reputation, and I had good. I've always had good support, especially from people here in Fresno. So that helped. So yeah, I mean, I think I was 24 the first day I started. So yeah, I was pretty young.
Taking over the team at age 24.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was young, and I was 24 and looked like 19, so yeah. So the first day of practice, no one knew if I was a coach or the athlete.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that. That's funny. So did you have, I'm assuming, athletes that were older than you?
I did. Well, yeah, community college. I'll probably have athletes that are older than me for a while. I mean, any age people can compete. I mean, as long as you're a student in community college, you have such a range. Obviously, there's people right out of high school, and then people, I mean, as old as you can be, and still take classes. So, yeah, I mean, we only have one or two that are maybe older, but.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, another question for you, CJ. Just with your professional running, how do you structure your own workouts? I know you're creating workouts for, Clovis Community College, but what about your own workouts?
Yeah, my workouts, I'm less structured with my own workouts than I am with like when I'm coaching my athletes or coaching other people, because I coach online as well. But kind of just do what feels right at the time. So I never really write out training plans. I just usually, I mean, I have like a certain amount of mileage that I want to run, and then the long runs, I try to get in a good long run each week, and then the workouts, you just want to like have, like for the marathon, you kind of just want to have like a variety of workouts. So I make sure to get in, like once every few weeks, I want to get something in at like VO2 max pace.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to get something in at like more like 10K pace or so. And then usually my threshold, I mix into my long runs. So in a 2-week period, I have things that I want to get done, but it doesn't really matter what specific days you do them on, as long as like it's all within the training program. So I just have the freedom of doing things on the day when it feels like my body's able to complete that specific workout the best. And then,
So what's the longest run that you do in marathon training?
Well, each training block, each time I train for a marathon, it gets longer. But around like 32 miles or so. I think maybe for the trials, actually the longest was 30 miles, because I had done CIM, and then I took like a week or two like easy, and then there was only like 10 weeks left, so I had to limit it a little bit. But yeah, around 30. I like to run a little bit longer.
Yeah. So you're doing more than a marathon in training.
He's doing some ultra training, it sounds like. That's pretty easy.
In the next year or so, I'll probably be doing some like 40-mile runs. And
awesome.
He just needs to give me a heads up, because sometimes he leaves to go run and I think he's just running like an hour, like a normal length. And he's gone for like 3 hours, and I'm like, I was gonna send a search party out for you. Gotta let me know.
Yeah.
That's only in the early season of training.
Yeah.
Like my first month of seriously training or so, I'll just randomly like do a real long run. Whereas normally when I'm in like more structured training, that's usually always on Sundays. But like this week I did like 3 18 to 21 mile runs like in a row, which I wouldn't normally do, but I'm just kind of having fun. So.
You're giving out your secrets.
Like. Yeah.
I don't have any secrets.
Recipe.
No one's really gonna do what I do training wise, so I mean, people can know what I do and they're still not gonna do it because I have no secrets.
Well, Chelsea, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. I know that you just graduated and that you have a new job working as a nurse. So tell us a little bit about that, where you're working, and kind of what your inspiration was for following that career.
Yeah. So I am just 2 weeks into my new job. I'm just like a very new nurse at Valley Children's. And it has been a great 2 weeks. I'm like so happy to say like I like being a nurse after the first 2 weeks. I'm glad I like went into nursing, and all the other nurses like have been so nice, and it seems like a really great unit that I'm on. And really I've wanted to be a nurse ever since I can remember. My mom said, like, I think it was around junior high, my mom said like that my sister had gotten sick, and then I just one day said I wanted to be a nurse, which I actually don't remember. But and I think no one like was in nursing in my family, like we were all teachers. But I think I like nursing because like I think the medical aspect of it makes it more interesting, but it's so personable. And now like that I get to work with kids, which I liked more than I even thought. Like I think it's kind of like interesting, like when I get there I like could have a baby that's only 2 weeks old, or I can have an 18-year-old kid. And like it's like such a like hard time for like the parents. It's like this is like potentially like their worst nightmare, like their kid is in the hospital. So like it's a like I like to think of myself as being pretty personable. Right now I have to say I'm really awkward because I'm so new and nervous and I don't really know the flow of things, but I'm hoping that will change, because really I feel like I like can be able to connect with parents and hopefully like ease their minds, like make them a little bit less anxious and feel like their child is getting great care, and that like I'm gonna take care of them like I would take care of my own child. And like make their like this hard moment in their life maybe just a little bit better, because like I'm loving their child and hopefully they're getting better too.
Yeah. Also, I know that Chelsea, you come from a running family. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. Your, I believe, twin sister is also an elite runner, and your brother as well. I'm just curious, like, what's it like at the Thanksgiving dinner table? You throw in CJ and you two and everyone else. I mean, what's the discussion like?
Well, me and my sister actually we ran CIM together, and that was where I qualified for the trials. And we got to run the first 18 miles together, which was so amazing. It was like really one of my like running like highlights ever. So that was like really special to get to experience like a marathon together, and it's like so bonding. And so then my brother is also a 2:14 marathoner, and my sister-in-law has run 2:32 or 2:33.
Oh my God.
I mean, and even my dad too has ran the Boston Marathon. He no longer runs, but at one point he was very proud to say that he was the first person in the family to run a marathon. But I actually can proudly say that I was the very first runner in the family. A lot of people think it was my brother, but I started running. Actually, my mom was the first runner. That's actually why I wanted to go out for the track team, is because I thought, oh, my mom ran, so I want to run. But I was the first child to start running, and then they followed in my footsteps. But when we are all together, it is nonstop talking about running. Sometimes I feel a little bad because there are non-runners there. It's annoying to have conversation and always be about running if you're not a runner. So lately we've been trying to put more of an effort to have a more balanced, wide variety topic of conversation so everyone can feel included.
Well, now it's all just going to be about kids. We don't have any kids yet, but
cousins
brother
are
just
getting
had one,
added.
and her sister's pregnant.
So that's like a fun thing. And we already were talking about, like, if we all have kids at the close time and they all become runners, like they can all run at the state meet together. Like, what meets will they all be competing? Like, we don't even have kids, but we're really hoping they're runners. Yes, that is very important.
Otherwise, they'll be playing basketball.
Well, we have a lot of runners in our family, but I feel like that might be next level.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you guys, we're getting close to closing up here, but I just, I want to dig a little bit deeper with a question that we like to ask all of our guests. This is really a podcast about the intersection of faith and running. And I know that both of you do care about your faith. And I'm just wondering if you would be willing to share, how has running and faith intersected in your lives?
You go first.
I think I've loved running for the relationships it's given me, and I would consider myself definitely a more social runner. Like, I want to go run with friends versus go compete in a race, which makes us very opposite. And so I love the people that it's put in my life and the opportunity it's given to just have really good conversations while you're running, and an opportunity to hopefully that people, I want them to see Jesus in my life and see his love and his grace, and being running with people and doing that every day over time. I hope that's building a relationship where Jesus can be shared eventually through that relationship. So I think at this point in my life, because running is I'm not running competitively or anything, my biggest thing is I'm hoping every day when I go run with people, they see a little bit of Jesus, and I can share Jesus with them, share the gospel.
Oh, I love that. It's beautiful. Yeah. Just having that as part of your purpose and your connection with people, to be able to share that faith. What about you, CJ?
Yeah, I've always had this interesting relationship between running and faith. I just since I was young, I just always felt this feeling that I'd be really really good in running, just at a very high level. And it was just this deep feeling that that's just who I was. And then as I got later in the high school, I kind of felt that about God too, that just there's this feeling of greatness that God called me to, not necessarily in running, but just as a person of faith, or just a godly leader, or just something. I didn't really know. And both of those were really challenged a lot. In college, I had a lot of struggles with running. we'd run like the 8K in college, and my first couple years I was running like averaging like 5:10 or 5:15 pace for 5 miles, which isn't very good at that level. And then, thinking that one day I'd be running like 15 seconds per mile faster for a full marathon is like, I mean, you can't even comprehend that, because
Yeah.
I was training super hard in college. So it's like, how can I train much harder? Like, so it was like, that just didn't seem like reality. So that feeling that I had about being great, like, it just was like, there's no way that's true. And then also in college, I struggled with my faith a lot, just like not really being able to believe in God or believe that the Bible's true or that Jesus was real, and just all this stuff. You have some people have doubts and questions and just doesn't make sense to them. So I was like, how am I going to be a great leader or like a great godly person or have great faith if like I literally can't even believe in God? But like those feelings, I feel like God like placed into me, like just seeing that they were both true, even though it felt like it was so far from that in the moment. And yeah, I mean, now like obviously I'm running well, and I've had like doubts in faith, but it's that's like getting better. And like the times when I do still struggle with faith, it almost feels like running is like, okay, God's like kind of shown me that like that feeling or whatever he called me to, like that's happening. So like he's going to continue to give me faith even when it doesn't make sense to me, or when I'm not feeling God's presence. It's like I'm still going to become who he created me to be, even though I can't see it right now.
Yeah, we are so grateful for your endorsement of our book, Walk, Run, Soar. Do you have any thoughts or any comments about the book that you can share with our audience? Because you have previewed it.
I think it's a great, like, I really enjoyed it, and like it seems like it's like a great like starter point of like, I just like want a little bit more of Jesus in my day every day, and like this is a great starting point of like sharing truth like from the Bible, and then like breaking it down where it's so easily understandable. And then it can give you a starter point, like if you don't know like where in the Bible to start reading, it's like you can start with those verses, which are all great verses, and then go from there. And then like with running too, like Shawn, you put like so many great running tips. Like if you like want to like restart your running, or like you need tips, it's like really a great starting point, like just to go there, like I don't know, I want something different in my running, and it's like you had great ideas that I really loved.
Yeah. I think for me, like personally, sometimes like I can be more critical, at least internally. So like I'll think like, oh, a lot of these devotionals or things are just kind of like cheesy and I don't really want to read them. But I felt like this book was like, it was enjoyable to read, and it wasn't like, because sometimes you can read things, especially like if you're reading the same genre, you can just hear the same thing said the same way, and it's like, okay, like this is, everyone says this. But like I felt like the book was readable because it was like engaging, and yeah, I mean there was practical tips, but it was like, it wasn't just a bunch of cliche thoughts that you hear 1,000 times. It was like great content that you could apply to your life, and also entertaining. Like the stories were quick, but they were engaging, and like you could connect with them, and it made it like you want to read it, and then apply those weekly. And I think we had like a short period of time, and it's meant to kind of apply those for a week. So I feel like we want to go back and be able to like do the things for a week at a time, versus reading them quickly.
Wow. Thank you guys so much. We just appreciate the time that you took to read through the book, and even that just kind of sharing with our audience. It's not going to be coming out for a couple of weeks. The book's available for pre-order, but just to get some insight from your experience. So thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing some fun kind of behind the scenes of your lives. And we are just honored that you could be on our podcast, and we'll be looking for you out there on the trails.
Today's training tip has to do with community. We encourage runners to join a local running club because it's a wonderful way to meet other runners, find training buddies, learn more about running, and even travel to races together. Oftentimes, running clubs get a discount from certain races and possibly discounts even at local running stores. Each running club may have a different emphasis, whether it's elite running, track running, trail running, or just running with anyone you want to. So we definitely encourage everyone to join a club.
Before we close today, I just wanted to share a few more details with you about our book, Walk Run Soar, which is a 52-week devotional and training journal that's designed just for you. We wrote this with you in mind, and it's really for runners who long to experience God's presence in a deeper way, whether pounding the pavement or traversing the trails, whether strolling through the neighborhood, taking a slow jog with friends. And Walk Run Soar is really designed to get you moving with this new motivation, this new purpose in mind of knowing Jesus more every step of the way. So there's a couple of things that are special features in Walk Run Soar. I mentioned before that there's an appendix at the end that offers articles and including some information about how to start your own running groups. And there's some training journal plans that we put at the end. So Shawn put together these schedules where if you're running a 5K, a 10K, half marathon, then he walks you through really like 12 weeks of training. So that's great for training for a specific race. At the end of each of the 52 weeks, we also include some reflection questions and some action steps. So that's a place where you can really just record and reflect on the things that you're learning, on what God might be teaching you as you go out on your runs, and even if you want to record some of your running progress. So we will leave the link to our book in the show notes. We hope you will pre-order or order it if you're listening to this after September 29th. And we just want to thank you for joining us today.
This was episode 3 of Walk, Run, Soar, a podcast about the intersection of faith and running. Next week, our special guest is Sunny Arata, who's the owner of Endure Jewelry and Apparel Company.
And we also want to invite you to subscribe to our weekly newsletter over at my website, DorinaGilmore.com. We put out this Glorygram newsletter, and I love sharing just inspirational stories from that week and recommendations for great books, videos, music, running tips, gear, and more. So join us over there, or you can find me on Instagram at Dorina Gilmore. Thanks, friends.